Hello everybody and welcome to day 16 of 30 Days of Godzilla. Today we begin the second series with a review on the movie The Return of Godzilla, or as most of you here in the United States might know it as Godzilla 1985. Now as of right now, this is the only Godzilla movie to not have an official DVD release. Now for those of you probably wondering, well, what's this I got right over here? Well, this DVD is something I bought off eBay, although it's not a commercial DVD, it's non-commercial. It's region free, it includes all the versions of the movie. Although not official, which disappoints me, this release kicks major ass and I'm very glad I bought it. Anyways, this movie right here is the start of the second series of the Godzilla films. It had been 10 years since Toho made a Godzilla film, and this also marked the big 30-year anniversary of the character, so Toho decided to put together a film that was much bigger and more elaborate than any other Godzilla film before it. In Japan, the movie was simply titled Godzilla. However, this is not a remake, it is in fact a direct sequel to the original 1954 classic, and it completely ignores all other previous entries in between that and now. There are two versions of the movie that drastically differ. There's the original Return of Godzilla cut and the butchered Godzilla 1985 cut. The Godzilla 1985 cut is the only cut that had been released in English in theaters and in the United States. However, there is an English dub of the original Return of Godzilla cut that exists everywhere else in the world. Both versions differ substantially, much how like in the vein of the original 1954 Godzilla when it was released in America and it was titled Godzilla King of the Monsters. Same thing goes here, they include an American actor, and the changes, of course, are majorly drastic. So we're going to first talk about the original Return of Godzilla cut, and we're going to talk about the 1985 cut and a few of the differences. Okay, first of all, there's the original Return of Godzilla cut. It opens with a Japanese fishing vessel that is caught in a storm, and they are trying to make it to land for safety. However, a giant monster appears and attacks the boat. Only one of the crew members survives, and the man who rescues him is then attacked by this huge-ass sea louse. When he returns to the mainland, the Return of Godzilla is kept secret from most of the world in order to prevent panic. However, a Soviet vessel is taken down by Godzilla, and this creates global chaos. As I'm sure some of you may know, this movie came out at a time during the whole Cold War struggle, so immediately Russia is quick to blame the Americans for this. It isn't until Japan tells them that Godzilla was behind the attack. So, with the news of Godzilla's attack, the United States and Russia are like, you must use nuclear missiles, it's the only way to stop them. And then Japan's like, under no circumstances are we going to use nuclear weapons, and then the search is on for Godzilla. Godzilla makes his first big appearance on the island that is off of Japan's coast, where he feeds off the reactor of the nuclear power plant. His first appearance is tense and eerie. I really like the new design of Godzilla in this movie, although the second series in particular has what I believe to be the best look of Godzilla consistently. After Godzilla feeds off the nuclear reactor, he quickly leaves the facility as he is distracted by a flock of birds. I don't know exactly why Godzilla decides to follow these birds. Maybe he's just like, the pretty birds, I must follow the pretty birds, coming after the birds. Oh, look how they flap their wings, ha da 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 da. Either that or it's just probably the signal they emit off when they fly, or something like that. So one of the scientist characters notices this and decides that this is the best way to lure Godzilla away when he attacks. Meanwhile, as Japan prepares for Godzilla's imminent attack, Russia decides that they should prepare too, and they have a control ship that is disguised as a freighter right in Tokyo Harbor, and on that ship is the control for a nuclear missile. Again, this goes and feeds into that whole Cold War tension that was going on at the time. So Godzilla finally shows up, but the military is prepared to attack, and of course all of this is useless because everybody knows that planes and missiles don't stand a fucking chance against Godzilla. Also, during his attack, the Russian freighter is damaged, which inadvertently, may I repeat that, inadvertently, launches the nuclear missile at Tokyo Harbor. The missile had been inadvertently launched. May I repeat myself, inadvertently launched. The guy tried to stop it, but he couldn't due to his injuries and he keeled over. Now in the Godzilla 1985 version, this scene drastically changes and, believe me, you're going to be like, what the fuck? So before the missile is finally launched, Godzilla continues his rampage and attacks the city. Now the typical military weapons, as we know, don't do shit. So instead, this time, the military created a weapon called the Super X to combat Godzilla. It's a lot stronger than your typical planar tank, it's got a really tough armor and it's laced with cadmium missiles which are designed to stop Godzilla's heart. In their first battle, they are able to knock Godzilla out. Unfortunately, that missile from earlier gets launched, and so the Americans launch a counter missile, and they collide, which creates a massive explosion that causes an electric storm, which then wakes up Godzilla. As you have probably guessed, when he wakes up, Godzilla is seriously pissed, and he just fucking annihilates the Super X. He takes this building, he just pushes it over, the building starts to fall down, the Super X is here, no, and he basically just kills everybody inside. At this point, Japan's best weapon is destroyed, which means they're fucked. 100% fucked. So Godzilla continues his rampage until he is lured away from Tokyo using the sounds emitted from birds and their flight patterns. Just go along with it. In the final scene, they lure Godzilla to a volcano and blast away the edge, which causes Godzilla to fall in and apparently kills him. But, as we all know, that wasn't the case. When I saw this ending at a young age, I always thought it was pretty sad. I mean, the music is really good here, and everybody being emotional really adds to the scene. It's pretty good. So with that being said, let's briefly cover over the Godzilla 1985 cut. The plot of this version basically follows the same as in the original Return of Godzilla cut. They basically made a few changes and added some new scenes. The new scenes are the biggest difference between both cuts. For this movie, they bring back Raymond Burr's character, Steve Martin, from the original Americanized Godzilla King of the Monsters. Now, his role in this movie is actually less than the original Americanized King of the Monsters. He's just basically there to give exposition, yada yada yada, and it looks like they shot all of his scenes in one day. But Raymond Burr, despite all that's thrown against him, he still does a good job here, and yeah, Raymond Burr kicks ass. But one funny thing to note about this movie is, in the movie, we all know the character's name is Steve Martin, but something funny is that at the time, the actor Steve Martin was really popular. So instead of just calling him Steve Martin, like they did there, they just refer to him as Mr. Martin, because audiences would probably laugh like, oh hey, Steve Martin, ha 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 ha. So as Raymond Burr just continues to shout exposition the entire time, some of the changes to this version are pretty bad. For instance, they cut out a lot of awesome shots of Godzilla and shorten other scenes. But the most controversial change of all comes when they had to go to the nuclear launch scene. In the original version, the Russian guy tries to stop the launch but dies before he can get there. However, in this version, they re-edit the scene. Let me get that straight and clear so that you can understand. They re-edit the scene to make it seem like the Russian guy is intentionally launching the missile at Tokyo Bay. Obviously due to all the Cold War tension between the US and Russia. Now this version in total runs about 16 minutes shorter than the original cut, and for the most part it's pretty butchered when compared to the original version. Apparently they originally wanted to make this movie a comedy, but Raymond Burr disapproved of this, saying that they should take the Godzilla character as a nuclear metaphor seriously. Thank you, Raymond Burr, for sticking up for what Godzilla stands for. You are a pretty cool guy. Rest in peace. As much as some of the changes in this version are terrible, I do prefer to watch the ending to this movie with the narration by Raymond Burr, because Raymond Burr, as we know, does a pretty good job, and I feel like his narration in a way helps the film and makes it seem more powerful. Comparing the different cuts, I'm fine watching either one. I mean, I like Raymond Burr, but I like having more Godzilla, so I'd say stick with the original cut, but play the Raymond Burr narration at the end. So with that being said, let me give my final thoughts. This is a nice return to form for Godzilla. I do think it's disappointing that he doesn't fight another monster in this one. However, I think in terms of production value, it's a nice leap forward. I'd probably rank this entry right about the middle in terms of my favorite Godzilla movies, leaning towards the upper half. So anyways, everybody who's watching this, thank you all for watching. Be sure to come back tomorrow because we will continue our quest through Godzilla. Have a good night, everyone.